Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Tanvita Neja. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Prime Minister Narendra Modi visits Adhampur Air Base in Punjab, hails the courage and determination of India's armed forces, says country's strong defence capability and cover is now India's identity. India's defence exports skyrocket 34-fold since 2014, currently exporting to 100-plus countries including USA and France, aiming for 50,000 crore rupees global military product sales by 2029. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh reviews security situation along India's western frontiers as normalcy returns to border towns. Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited the Adhampur Air Force Station in Punjab this morning to meet the brave air warriors and soldiers. The Prime Minister interacted with them and also addressed them, commending their courage and professionalism in protecting the nation. Prime Minister Modi said that when Indian soldiers say Bharat Mata Ki Jai, enemies' heart tremble with fear.
मां भारती की जय बोलते हैं तो दुश्मन के कलेजे कांप जाते हैं। जब हमारे ड्रोन जब हमारी मिसाइलें सनसनाती हुई निशाने पर पहुंचती हैं तो दुश्मन को सुनाई देता है भारत माता की जय। जब रात के अंधेरे में भी जब हम सूरज उगा देते हैं तो दुश्मन को दिखाई देता है भारत माता की जय। जब हमारी फौजें न्यूक्लियर ब्लैकमेल की धमकी की हवा निकाल देती है तो आकाश से पाताल तक एक ही बात गूंजती है भारत माता की जय।
Prime Minister Narendra Modi gave a strong message that India is capable of attacking the terrorist hideouts with precision. Prime Minister Modi underscored that under Operation Sindoor, not only the terrorist camps were destroyed, but their nefarious designs and audacity were also defeated.
हमारी एयरफोर्स ने पाकिस्तान में इतना डीप आतंक के अड्डों को टारगेट किया, सिर्फ 20-25 मिनट के भीतर सीमा पार लक्ष्यों को भेदना, बिल्कुल पिन पॉइंटेड टारगेट्स को हिट करना, ये सिर्फ एक मॉडर्न टेक्नोलॉजी से लेस प्रोफेशनल फोर्स ही कर सकती है। आपकी स्पीड और प्रिसीजन इस लेवल की थी कि दुश्मन हक्का बक्का रह गया। उसको पता ही नहीं चला कि कब उसका सीना छलनी हो गया।
Also, Prime Minister Narendra Modi gave a strong message that Operation Sindoor is India's new normal.
आतंक के विरुद्ध भारत की लक्ष्मण रेखा अब एकदम स्पष्ट है। अब फिर कोई टेरर अटैक हुआ तो भारत जवाब देगा, पक्का जवाब देगा। ये हमने सर्जिकल स्ट्राइक के समय देखा है, एयर स्ट्राइक के समय देखा है, और अब तो ऑपरेशन सिंदूर भारत का न्यू नॉर्मल है।
Prime Minister Modi also said that it was because of the courage of the Indian Air Force, Indian Army and Navy, along with the Border Security Force, that Operation Sindoor resonates all over the world.
मैं वीरों की इस धरती से आज एयरफोर्स, नेवी और आर्मी के सभी जाबाजों, बीएसएफ के अपने शूरवीरों को सैल्यूट करता हूं। आपके पराक्रम की वजह से आज ऑपरेशन सिंदूर की गूंज हर कोने में सुनाई दे रही है। इस पूरे ऑपरेशन के दौरान हर भारतीय आपके साथ खड़ा रहा। हर भारतीय की प्रार्थना आप सभी के साथ रही। आज हर देशवासी अपने सैनिकों, उनके परिवारों के प्रति कृतज्ञ है, उनका ऋणी है।
Indeed, India's Dibendu Mondal is joining us with more. Dibendu, a stern warning coming there for Pakistan by Prime Minister Narendra Modi that India has just paused its military actions, but if need be, Operation Sindoor will become the new normal.
Well, Tanvi, that's absolutely right. You know, the stern message that is coming from Prime Minister Narendra Modi when he went and spoke to the army jawans at the crucial Adampur Air Base. Of course, it gives out a very, very strong and stern message to Pakistan, who had been for a long time saying that they have done damage. So it was standing proof to the people of Pakistan, and of course to the military establishment and to the political establishment of Pakistan. And the Prime Minister also, even during his yesterday's speech to the address to the nation, we did see that, this is the new normal. Any act of terror will be considered as an act of war. And of course, this will be, this is the change in the policy of the government. This is the new doctrine that the government of India will be following. And this is a very, very stern, strong message to Pakistan to back off from exporting terrorism into India, for waging out a proxy war that it has been doing against India for a very, very long time. So, of course, the Prime Minister interacting with the army jawans, with all the three forces of the Indian Army present there at the Adampur, military station, gives a very strong message. You see the top leadership of India, none less than the Prime Minister of India, at a time like this, going to a military station, which gives immense confidence to the armed personnel as well, that their leader, someone like the Prime Minister himself, has come to support them, to boost their morale, to strengthen them, is something, of course, that is being spoken about amongst the armed forces as well. That the Prime Minister's visit at the Adampur military station this morning. So, of course, it's a strong message to the Pakistan, to the Pakistani military establishment, as well as to the political establishment of Pakistan. So, therefore, this is going to go a long way in boosting the morale of the army personnel as well from across India, especially in the Western Front, where the security is extremely heightened, given the fact that Pakistan has been carrying out these misadventures on the Indian soil. So, of course, this is, as you had been rightly saying, it's a very stern message to Pakistan.
Okay, in Operation Sindoor, apart from the manpower, the coordination of machines was amazing, said Prime Minister Modi. A word on that absolute synergy among the Indian Defence Forces?
Absolutely, Tanvi. There is no doubt about it that there has been an absolute synergy with amongst all the three forces of the army, the three services of the army. The visit of Prime Minister, in fact, gave another message to Pakistan that all our indigenously manufactured weapon system have functioned properly. There have been an integrated command and control center, which the army in its press briefing also spoke about. The Prime Minister himself spoke about how manufactured defense units in India had been performing their best during this entire operation, and many of which were used in this operation. So, of course, now it is tested in conflicts. Of course, it's one of the best defense production produced. These big army stuff that we have got has proven in this conflict. So therefore, this gives confidence amongst the army personnel, amongst the DRDO that has been carrying out the manufacturing of these defense equipments. So therefore, this integrated command system also did help. The Akash, the Astra, the S-400, the ADSs that we had, everything worked in synergy. Even in terms of the Navy operations, when the Director General of Navy Operations was speaking in the press conference, he also gave out details about how the Navy was prepared. So therefore, each of the armed forces worked in synergy and had given a befitting reply to Pakistan, be it land, air, and of course on water. They did not try to do any misadventure. But, the Navy was prepared. But on land and air, India has given a befitting reply to Pakistan's misadventure and trying to test the patience of the Indian military force. So of course, the integration, the integrated...
Yes, Dipendu, in Prime Minister's address to the nation last night and his address today at the Adampur military base, two important messages here for the world community. It's not an era of war, but it's not an era of terrorism as well. Second, the act of terror from now onwards will be treated as equivalent to an act of war. So Prime Minister Narendra Modi telling the world that terrorism can no longer be tolerated and it will be dealt with strong reply.
Well, Tanvi, absolutely. The message is loud and clear, and the Prime Minister did not mince his words when he was speaking about this yesterday as well in his address to the nation. So, of course, this message to the global leaders as well. It is for them to see, the Indian Army, the Prime Minister have also spoken about it, that how, these military men in military uniform, which is of course the Pakistani Army, were seen, attending funerals alongside the terrorists, funeral of terrorists alongside the terrorists. So of course, it is for the global leaders to see how Pakistan for decades have been exporting terrorism, harboring terrorists on their land, and therefore, any act of terror, be it the fringe terrorist elements, of course, they are not fringe, they are mainstream in Pakistan. So, and those who are supporting these terrorist organizations within the establishment of Pakistan, be it the military or political dispensation, will be equally held responsible, and they will be equally part of the terror network. So therefore, it will then be known as an act of war, and our doctrine for the act of war has now been changed, with the government announcing that formally, that from now on, any such misadventure or act of terror on the soil of India will be considered as an act of war. And therefore, to the global leaders also, that India doesn't listen to any global leaders when it comes to its internal policy or protecting its sovereignty. It was a stern message to many of the global leaders who were trying to influence into, or meddle into India's affairs, that, trade and terror cannot go hand in hand. Talks and terror cannot go hand in hand, and of course the Indus Water Treaty, which is currently in abeyance, blood and water cannot flow together. So of course, no talks with Pakistan unless it decides to talk on terror and decides to talk on the Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. So the message to the world have, of course, been extremely clear from the Prime Minister's side, and this is, of course, if the Prime Minister is saying it's being considered as a policy of the government, that there will be no talks with Pakistan if they do not stop exporting terrorism, and if they are not interested to talk about Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. So therefore, and of course, the global leaders cannot interfere or intervene in the sovereign matter of India. It is just India's matter between India and Pakistan. So therefore, let us handle it. The world leaders can, talk on something else. So of course, it's a message to the world leaders from Prime Minister Narendra Modi as well. Thank you.
Okay, Dibyendu, request you to stay with me. I want to bring you in on another story related to India's defence. But let's tell our viewers in news coming in that the Director General Defence Intelligence Agency, Lieutenant General D.S. Rana, briefed the Foreign Service attaches of 70 nations on the successful conduct of Operation Sindoor. Lieutenant General D.S. Rana highlighted India's demonstrated strength and national resolve through military superiority in the new age warfare. The DGDIA elaborated on deliberate planning process for selection of targets with confirmed terror linkages. Lieutenant General Rana also placed credible record of the relentless anti-India misinformation campaign conducted by the adversary and its ramifications on regional peace and stability, which was effectively and swiftly countered by the Indian Defence Forces. Now, the success of Make in India has not only reinforced national security but positioned India as a dependable exporter of defence equipment. This is quite evident from the good news that we are now going to give you. India's defence exports have witnessed a 34-fold increase since 2014, surging from 686 crore rupees in 2013-14 to 23,622 crore rupees in 2024-25. India's exports to 100 plus countries now, including the United States of America, France and Armenia, aiming for 50,000 crore rupees in exports by 2029, surely strengthening its global defence manufacturing footprint. Notably, India's defence budget has increased from 2.53 lakh crore rupees in 2013-14 to 6.81 lakh crore rupees in 2025-26. Strategic reforms, private sector participation and innovation have boosted indigenous manufacturing, making India a self-reliant, globally trusted defence exporter while strengthening national security and economic growth. So, Dibyendu, this is a very positive news. India's defence exports seeing a 34-fold increase in the past decade plus. It shows that we are a rising force in indigenous defence manufacturing. Well, when proofs of those strikes were asked from the Indian defence forces, we had credible material on record as compared to the Pakistani defence side. So that proves the ability of our, munitions.
Well, absolutely, Tanvi. This had been, talked about for a very long time, that India has been increasing its defense manufacturing capacity for a very long time. And this current conflict between India and Pakistan, the manufactured, defense equipments in India has been tested in a conflict. So, of course, when we talk about, why this is important is, of course, because unless and until your defense equipments are tested in a conflict, it's not considered as foolproof for many of the world countries. So, of course, now it has been tested. It has proved to be 100% foolproof. And therefore, India could get likely orders also from other countries. This would lead to, India's increase in defense exports, because now that, we have proven, tested our defense manufacturing capacity, indigenously manufacturing capacity, and proven to the world that, our defense, indigenously manufactured defense equipments are exceptionally well. When we talk about the Akash missile, when we talk about the Astra, those are all ADSs that have been manufactured in India. So, of course, these are something that will be, of course, will be talked about much later when the dust settles down. But, of course, and not to forget that, how India has been able to achieve such a feat over the last 1 decade is, of course, the Prime Minister's, impending push for manufacturing in India. For indigenizing, bringing up a lot of startups in the defense manufacturing sector, opening it to the private players. I remember there had been these press conferences where Prime Minister, or in fact these events where Prime Minister himself spoke to a lot of these startups who were interested in manufacturing defense equipment. There were some certain drone companies that were interested in manufacturing defense drones in India. And therefore, the window that has been given to them by this government over the last 1 decade is a result that we are seeing today. So, of course, the journey has started. India's journey to becoming one of the largest defense manufacturing powers in the world, and of course, it's just the beginning, Tanvi.
Yes.
We'll have much more in the coming time.
Yes, India's BrahMos and India's Akash are just the beginning of the journey of India's defense exports. Thank you very much, Dibyendu Mondal, for joining us with all those updates on India's defense story. Now, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh today reviewed the security situation along the western border during a meeting at the South Block in New Delhi. Chief of Defence Staff General Anil Chauhan, Chief of the Naval Staff Admiral Dinesh Tripathi, Chief of the Army Staff General Upendra Dwivedi, Defence Secretary Shri Rajesh Kumar Singh and Vice Chief of the Air Staff Air Marshal Narmadeshwar Tiwari attended the meeting. In another update, the Chief of Defence Staff General Anil Chauhan called on the Vice President of India, Jagdeep Dhankar, at the Vice President's enclave earlier today. Indian Army today eliminated 3 hardcore terrorists during the search and destroy Operation Keller in the Shopian district of Jammu and Kashmir. In a tweet, the Indian Army said, and I quote, on 13th of May 2025, based on specific intelligence of a Rashtriya Rifles unit about presence of terrorists in the general area Shoikal Keller, Shopian, Indian Army launched a search and destroy operation. During the operation, terrorists opened heavy fire and fierce firefight ensued, which resulted in the elimination of 3 hardcore terrorists. The operation is in progress. Security agencies have put up posters of the 3 Pakistani terrorists believed to be behind the April 22nd Pahalgam Kashmir have appeared across multiple locations in Jammu and Kashmir's Shopian district. The posters announce a reward of 20 lakh rupees for anyone who provides credible information on the terrorists involved. The agencies have assured that the identity of the informants will be kept strictly confidential. So the borders along the northern and western fronts of India remained relatively calm after days of air sirens and blackouts. A semblance of normalcy was observed in the border areas, with markets in Jammu teeming with people. Across the Kashmir Valley, markets opened, traffic returned to its normal level with no shelling being reported. People in Punjab's border areas also felt relieved as tensions ease. Markets are opening and locals hope for peace to continue. Further, in a significant nationwide outreach effort, the 11-day-long Tiranga Yatra began today. This Tiranga Yatra will honour the courage and sacrifice of India's armed forces, particularly in the light of the recently concluded and successful Operation Sindoor. The initiative aims to connect with citizens across communities and regions, emphasizing a message of patriotism, national solidarity and respect for the tricolour. With the Tiranga Yatra, it is expected to help foster a deeper connection between citizens and the armed forces, reinforcing the Modi government's message of decisive leadership and national security. Moving on now, India is stepping on the gas, quite literally, in a strategic push to diversify its energy sources. State-run GAIL India Limited has invited expressions of interest to acquire up to a 26% stake in a US-based LNG project. At the same time, GAIL is accelerating its green transition. The company has advanced its net zero carbon emission target by 5 years, now aiming for 2035 instead of 2040. Adopting a multi-pronged approach to sustainability. In an exclusive conversation with DD India, CMD Sandeep Kumar Gupta shared insights on GAIL's evolving role in India's energy landscape.
Joining me is CMD of GAIL, Mr. Sandeep Kumar Gupta. Sir, welcome to Doordarshan. Just wanted to ask you, you talk about the India's renewable energy project and your company also is going through the net zero project. You've actually reduced the timeline from 2040 to 2035. How are you guys doing that?
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, GAIL per se is much greener than the other companies, other fossil fuel companies. So it is our responsibility as a good global citizen that we must reduce the emission of greenhouse gases. So in that direction, while 2040 was also a very aggressive target, but we decided that we can do it earlier, and we have reduced the target to by 5 years and have advanced the target to 2035. And we have a whole roadmap lined up for achieving that target, and we have a capex plan also to meet that target.
And you guys are also quite vigorously going out for green hydrogen. You guys are planning big on that, right?
So we wanted to demonstrate that we have a good plan and we are confident enough to achieve that plan. And in that direction, we commissioned country's first megawatt scale green hydrogen electrolyzer at our Vijaypur facility in Madhya Pradesh, which is 4.4 tons per day capacity and 1.4 KTA per annum capacity. And with commissioning of that plant, we are very sure that we are capable of taking other steps also in this direction.
Right. Last question I'd like to ask you. You guys are aggressively pursuing energy resources in US. US LNG, you guys are looking for a stake there?
Yeah, I'm happy to inform that GAIL was the first company to contract long-term basis US supplies. And we have today 5.8 million ton per annum out of our total portfolio of 14.5 million ton per annum, which is operational as of now. And going by the commitment which the country has, we have floated another EOI taking with the purpose to take 26% stake in a liquefaction plant in US with 1 million ton offtake, which will add to the already contracted volumes.
So that's going to increase and diversify GAIL's energy basket, isn't it?
Yeah, because the country the natural gas demand is definitely going to go much higher, and in that direction we need new volumes from every geography. In that direction, I think we have some scope from US also.
Much appreciated your time. So that was the CMD of GAIL stating that energy basket is getting diversified, and more importantly, India's net zero commitment for 2070, they are actually going ahead and reducing that to 2035. Their company is planning to get net zero by 2035. With Camera Person Sanjeev, this is Tapush Bhattacharya for GD India from Delhi.
Sri Lanka's Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuraya and High Commissioner of India Santosh Jha jointly inaugurated the Dhamma Rupa exhibition in Colombo. Organized by the Indian High Commission, ICCR Colombo and Bihar Museum, the exhibition is part of the National Vesak Festival held at Sima Malakaya Gangaramaya Temple. Dhamma Rupa highlights the shared Buddhist heritage of India and Sri Lanka through rare artifacts and exhibits. The event underscores the deep cultural and spiritual ties between the two countries, celebrated during Vesak, the most sacred day in the Buddhist calendar. You're watching DD India, still to come on the show. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman welcomes Donald Trump as the US President begins his Gulf tour. Foreign investment in Germany falls for the third year in a row in 2024. We discuss the impact with our DW correspondent. Thousands lanterns light up the night sky as Indonesian Buddhists gathered to celebrate the Vesak day.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Tanvi Taneja. A quick reminder of our top stories. Prime Minister Narendra Modi visits Adampur Air Base in Punjab, hails courage and determination of India's armed forces, says country's strong defence capability and cover is now India's identity. India's defence exports skyrocket 34-fold since 2014. Currently, India exporting to 100+ countries, including America and France, aiming for 50,000 crore rupees global military product sales by 2029. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh reviews security situation along India's western frontiers as normalcy returns to border towns. On to international updates of the day. US President Donald Trump is visiting Saudi Arabia, starting what he describes as a historic tour of the Gulf nations. Upon his arrival in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman welcomed Donald Trump in an official ceremony at the Saudi royal court. The two leaders, Donald Trump and Mohammed bin Salman, sat down for an initial meeting at the King Khalid Airport in Riyadh, next to the portraits of members of the Saudi royal family. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio was also present at the meeting. With this Gulf tour, US President Donald Trump marks the first major diplomatic trip of his second term. The two leaders also met Tesla CEO Elon Musk in Saudi Arabia's capital, Riyadh. They spoke with Musk during a reception held for the US President at the start of his 4-day visit to the Gulf region. US President Donald Trump and Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman also met several executives. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman of ChatGPT fame, computer chip giant NVIDIA's chief executive Jensen Huang were also present. Israeli-American hostage Eden Alexander has been reunited with his family in Israel after being held captive by Hamas in Gaza for 19 months. He was one of several hostages released after talks with international mediators. Alexander was freed during a brief pause in fighting in Gaza. His return brings hope during the ongoing conflict.
Eden Alexander, an Israeli-American hostage, has been reunited with his family after being held by Hamas for months on Tuesday. The 21-year-old had been serving in the Israeli army on the border of Gaza when he was captured by Hamas on 7th October 2023. Alexander was the last living hostage in Gaza with American citizenship. He is also the first hostage to be freed by Hamas since Israel restarted its military offensive on 18th March after a 2-month ceasefire came to an end. Hailing the return of US-Israeli captive, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said it was a very emotional moment. Netanyahu thanked the diplomatic efforts of US President Donald Trump and stated Israel's military pressure and Trump's political pressure were a winning formula.
This is a very emotional moment. Eden Alexander has returned home. We embrace him and his family. This was achieved thanks to a military pressure and the diplomatic pressure exerted by President Trump. This combination is a winning formula. I spoke today with President Trump. He told me I'm committed to Israel. I'm committed to continuing to work in close coordination with you to achieve all our war objectives, to release all the hostages and to defeat Hamas. These goals go hand in hand. They are interconnected.
United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has welcomed the release of Eden Alexander. The UN chief, in a statement read by US spokesperson, called for an immediate permanent ceasefire and unconditional release of all remaining hostages.
The Secretary General is profoundly relieved that Mr. Alexander has been freed and is now returning to his family after this harrowing ordeal. The Secretary General renews his urgent call for an immediate permanent ceasefire and an immediate and unconditional release of all remaining hostages. Hostages must be treated humanely and with dignity. He calls on all parties to immediately ensure the rapid, the unhindered, and the safe humanitarian relief, including the delivery of critical services for all civilians in need. Aid in Gaza and anywhere around the world is not negotiable.
The return of Eden Alexander was celebrated in his hometown in the US. Alexander, who is now 21, grew up in New Jersey before moving to Israel, where he was serving in the Israeli army. Alexander was abducted in October 2023 and spent 584 days in captivity before being freed and returned to Israel. Bureau Report, TD India.
Global markets, including US stocks, surged today after the announcement by the US and China of an agreement to reduce their reciprocal tariffs for 90 days. The agreement reignited investor appetite for stocks and commodities, unleashing a 3.3% rally on Wall Street the previous day. Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 2.8%, S&P 500 rose 3.3%, while Nasdaq rose 4.4%. Earlier, in a joint agreement, the US agreed to lower their tariffs from 145% to 30%, while China's retaliatory tariffs on US goods will drop to 10% from 125%. The US president expressed confidence and said that he doesn't see United States tariffs on China imports rising back to 145%. Meanwhile, Trump has said that he expects to speak to Chinese President Xi Jinping at the end of the week after an agreement to reduce tit-for-tat tariffs.
The talks in Geneva were very friendly. The relationship is very good. We're not looking to hurt China. China was being hurt very badly. They were closing up factories. They were having a lot of unrest. And they were very happy to be able to do something with us. And the relationship is very, very good. I'll speak to President Xi maybe at the end of the week. We have some other things we're doing.
In some other updates from the United States, a group of 49 white South Africans arrived in the United States on Monday after being granted refugee status under a controversial policy introduced by former US President Donald Trump. The chartered flight from Johannesburg landed at Washington, marking the first formal arrival of white South Africans admitted on claims of racial persecution. The individuals were accepted under a Trump-era directive that prioritized white South African applicants, while severely restricting refugee admissions from predominantly non-white countries. Treating white South Africans as refugees fleeing oppression has drawn a mixture of alarm and ridicule by South African authorities, who say that the Trump administration has waded into a domestic issue it does not understand. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has been sworn in for his second term following a sweeping electoral victory that delivered the largest centre-left Labour government since Australia's federation in 1901. Post his win on Tuesday, Albanese credited the win to voter frustration over global instability, including fallout from US President Donald Trump's policies. Labour secured at least 92 of 150 seats in the House of Representatives, with final results still pending. Key cabinet roles, such as that of Treasurer, Defence and Foreign Affairs, remain unchanged, while new appointments include Michelle Rowland as Attorney General and Tanya Plibersek as Social Services Minister. The opposition Liberal Party elected Susan Ley as its first female leader after losing heavily in the urban areas to climate and equality-focused independents. Albanese is scheduled to visit Indonesia and attend the inauguration Mass of Pope Leo XIV in Rome, where he will meet global leaders to discuss trade and economic ties. In Germany, new figures show that foreign direct investments into the country fell for the third consecutive year in 2024. Joining us with more on that is DW correspondent Chiponda Chimbelu from Berlin. Chiponda, can you break down the numbers for us?
Thanks for having me. Well, the figure for greenfield projects was 2% lower last year than in 2023, and that is according to Germany Trade and Invest. And the amount invested, 23.2 billion euros, was also lower than in 2023 and the year before that. Now, despite that, investment volumes remained relatively high and are still above pre-COVID levels. And that is largely due to some big ticket projects. That includes investments by Amazon Web Services, Microsoft, and Apple, which all invested more than €1 billion last year. Now, these tech giants were also the main reason why the United States remains the leading source of foreign direct investment in Germany. But despite last year's decent figures, there are some concerns about Germany's competitiveness.
Okay, thank you, Chiponda, for all those updates. Prime Minister Narendra Modi today chaired a meeting to review progress of tuberculosis elimination campaign. The campaign aims to accelerate the fight against TB by improving case detection, reducing diagnostic delays and enhancing target and treatment outcomes. India's approach to eliminating tuberculosis, TB, is not just a national endeavour, it is also aligned with global goals. As a signatory to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, India is committed to meeting the target of ending TB by 2025, 5 years ahead of the SDG deadline of 2030. And from here, let's go live across to the weekly press briefing of the Ministry of External Affairs.
Siddhant. Hi, Sir Siddhant. Sir, we saw a social media post by the US President Donald Trump in which he had basically talked about a solution on Kashmir, talking about India and Pakistan. Your reaction to this? And secondly, sir, my other question is on India-Pakistan ceasefire or understanding. The conversation between which all countries led to this ceasefire? What was India's view on that, on mediation? And what did India convey to these countries?
Okay. Jessica?
Hi sir, this is Jessica Taneja for DD India. Now that both sides have agreed for stoppage of firing and military action, what will happen to the Indus Water Treaty? Because Pakistan has said that stopping of water will be considered as an act of war. What are your views on this?
Kadambini?
कादम्बरी शर्मा, इंडिपेंडेंट जर्नलिस्ट। सर, डोनाल्ड ट्रंप ने एक बयान दिया है कि उन्होंने सीज फायर जो हुआ है वो उन्होंने ट्रेड का हवाला देकर कराया है, तो क्या प्रधानमंत्री मोदी और डोनाल्ड ट्रंप के बीच ट्रेड को लेकर कोई बात हुई है इस संदर्भ में?
सिद्धांत।
Hi sir, I am Siddhant from CNN News 18. Sir, any reaction to a statement which came from Pakistan's Foreign Ministry on Prime Minister Modi's speech at from Frontline Adampur Air Base?
Okay, let me take these questions and then we'll come back for more. So Siddhant, regarding your question, as you are aware, we have a long-standing national position that any issues pertaining to the Union territory of Jammu and Kashmir have to be addressed by India and Pakistan bilaterally. That stated policy has not changed. As you are aware, the outstanding matter is the vacation of illegally occupied Indian territory by Pakistan. और people like Manish, आपके लिए मैं हिंदी में रूपांतर कर दे रहा हूँ। हमारा लंबे अरसे से यही राष्ट्रीय पक्ष रहा है कि भारतीय केंद्र शासित प्रदेश जम्मू और कश्मीर से संबंधित किसी भी मुद्दे को भारत और पाकिस्तान को द्विपक्षीय तरीके से ही हल करना है। इस नीति में कोई बदलाव नहीं हुआ है। जैसा कि आप जानते हैं, लंबित मामला केवल पाकिस्तान द्वारा अवैध रूप से कब्जा किए गए भारतीय क्षेत्र को खाली करने का है। Siddhant, you had another question regarding ceasefire and what sort of role other countries played, etc. See, the specific date, time and wording of the understanding was worked out between the DGMOs of the two countries at their phone call on 10th May 2025, commencing at 15:35 hours. The Foreign Secretary had made a statement in this regard, as you would be aware. The request for this call was received by MEA from the Pakistani High Commission at 12:37 hours. The Pakistani side had initial difficulties connecting the hotline connecting to the Indian side due to technical difficulties. The timing was then decided based on the availability of the Indian DGMO at 15:35 hours. You will of course appreciate that early on 10th morning, we had mounted an extremely effective attack on key Pakistani Air Force bases. That was the reason they were now willing to stop firing and military action. Let me be clear, it was the force of Indian arms that compelled Pakistan to stop its firing. As regards conversations with other nations, the message from India was clear and consistent, and exactly the same message that we were conveying from public platforms was the one conveyed in private conversations. It was that India was responding to the 22nd April terrorist attack by targeting the terrorist infrastructure. However, if the Pakistani armed forces fire, Indian armed forces will fire back. If Pakistan stops, India will also stop. This was also the message that was conveyed to the Pakistani side at the time of the commencement of Operation Sindoor, which was not heeded to by the Pakistani side at that time. It is natural that many foreign leaders who heard this from us would have shared it with their Pakistani interlocutors. Jessica, you had a question on IWT. The other day you saw that after the CCS decision, this Indus Water Treaty has been put in abeyance. I would also like to take you back a little. The IWT, the Indus Water Treaty, was concluded in the spirit of goodwill and friendship as specified in the preamble of the treaty. However, Pakistan has held these principles in abeyance by its promotion of cross-border terrorism for several decades now. Now, as per CCS decision that I referred to of 23rd April, India will keep the treaty in abeyance until Pakistan credibly and irrevocably abjures its support for cross-border terrorism. Please also note that climate change, demographic shifts and technological changes have created new realities on ground as well. Kandanmi had a question regarding trade matters. From the time of Operation Sindoor commenced on 7th May, till the understanding on cessation of firing and military action on 10th May, there were conversations between Indian and US leaders on the evolving military situation. The issue of trade did not come up in any of these discussions. Siddhant, you had a question on the latest statement issued by the Pakistan Foreign Office. We have seen the statement made by the Pakistani side that a nation which has nurtured terrorism on an industrial scale should think that it can escape the consequences is fooling itself. The terrorist infrastructure sites that India destroyed were responsible not only for the deaths of Indians, but of many other innocents around the world. There is now a new normal. The sooner Pakistan gets it, the better it is. Shall we take more questions? Aditya?
Mr. Jaiswal, I have two quick questions. One, that some of the Indian diplomats who have given interviews abroad have said that India has electronic intercepts and gathered intelligence linking to Pahalgam attackers to the handlers, and they have been planning more attacks. So have you given any kind of this evidence to the foreign attaches and diplomats that were briefed today, and in the context of ambassadors also that were briefed earlier? And yeah, that's about it.
Megha?
Good evening, sir. Megha from NewsX. My question is that India, it's being reported, is going to be sending a team to the UNSC 1267 sanctions committee. The meeting is going to be held later in the week, and the purpose for it is to declare the TRF as a globally designated terrorist organization. If you could shed more light into this.
Okay. Rishabh.
Spokesperson, good evening. Rishabh from Times. Now, I have just two questions here. Pakistan Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar has given an interview to CNN, and where he has claimed success and suggested that India was keen to have the ceasefire. Your comments on that? Also, there are a lot of buzz on social media as well as in various international media about nuclear leakage in Pakistan. Can you shed some light on that as well?
Manas.
This is Manas from PTI. US President Donald Trump, again, he claimed yesterday that he stopped a nuclear conflict between India and Pakistan. And, he stopped escalation and saved millions of lives through, by reaching out to both capitals. He even said that, in fact, he pressured India and Pakistan to just come forward for the cessation of hostilities, saying that if you don't do, then I will stop trade with both the countries. So can you please clarify whether he just reached out to us and asked us to stop? You have been maintaining that, in fact, the resolution was arrived at by two DCMOs, but have you just protested at the US side for making these claims, which we consider are baseless?
Okay, let me take these questions. First, Aditya, your question. We have had several rounds of briefings, and in these briefings, we have also shared with you the kind of linkage we see between the perpetrators of the attack of Pahalgam, in particular the Resistance Front. Foreign Secretary in his statement also made very clear the kind of evidence that we see. And investigation is going on in this particular matter. You would have seen that TRF had taken responsibility, and then second day, twice they had taken responsibility, and thereafter, possibly at the behest of their handlers, they rolled it back. But TRF is one organization which is a front of the Lashkar-e-Taiba, and you would understand and perhaps be in the knowledge of it that we have been pursuing listing of TRF in the United Nations, by the United Nations Security Council, by the Sanctions Committee, UNSC 1267 Sanctions Committee. I'm not privy to what was shared 2 hours back, but for sure we'll update you on as to how the investigation progresses in this matter. Mega on UNSC 1267 Sanctions Committee. Yes, over the last 2 years or so, 23, 24, we have been sharing information with the United Nations Security Council, the monitoring team of the Sanctions Committee, as to why the terrorist TRF, which is the front for Lashkar-e-Taiba, should be listed as a terrorist entity. We will be also, in few days' time, we will be sharing more details in this regard, and hopefully Security Council 1267 monitoring team will take strong note of what we present, what we file, and take due action against that is required. Rishabh, on your question regarding the interview that the Pak Foreign Minister gave. In the last week, as a result of Operation Sindoor, Pakistan has seen its terror centers in Bahawalpur, Murudke, Muzaffarabad, and other places destroyed. You have been informed of it in several of the briefings that we've had. Thereafter, its military capabilities were significantly degraded by us, and key air bases effectively put out of action. If the Pakistani FM wishes to project these as achievement, obviously he is welcome to do so. Where India is concerned, our stand was very clear and consistent from the start. we would target terrorist infrastructure operating out of Pakistan. If the Pakistani military stayed out, there would be no problem. If they fired on us, we would respond suitably. Till the night of 9th May, Pakistan was threatening India with a massive assault. Once their attempt failed on 10th May morning, and they received a devastating Indian counter response, their tune changed, and their DGMO eventually reached out to us. I just referred to the timings, etc., as to when they reached out. In essence, India's position remained the same. Pakistan's position changed on 10th May morning after its air bases were effectively put out of action. All you have to do is to look at who called who to negotiate the terms of the cessation of firing. By the way, we are living in a day and age where you have satellite pictures available commercially. I urge you to look at the satellite pictures of the sites which Pakistan says or claims to have attacked in India. Contrast it with the sites and places which we successfully targeted and destroyed. That will give you a clear answer. Claiming victory is an old habit. 1975 की बात यही थी, 71 की बात यही रही, 1999 करगिल वॉर में भी यही राग आलापा. तो पाकिस्तान का तो पुराना ये उनका ढोल बजाने का है, जो रवैया है, आलापने का रवैया है, ढोल बहुत पुराना है. परस्त हो जाओ लेकिन ढोल बजाओ. Rishabh, you also had a question regarding on that. I think there are 2-3 things there. There's talk of we saw some social media post about Egyptian, American aircraft, etc. But those questions are for them to answer, not for us. But on the nuclear, in the defense briefing, if you remember, our side made things very clear as to what was the target, etc. As far as your particular question, I think the Pak Foreign Minister also has made some comments on that. Manas, about nuclear issue that you pointed out. See, the military action from our side was entirely in the conventional domain. This was also made very clear in the defense briefing yesterday. There were some questions also which were asked. There were some reports, however, that Pakistan National Command Authority will meet on 10th May, which we saw, but this was later denied by them. Pakistan FM has himself denied the nuclear angle on record. So, Rishabh, that also answers your question. As you know, India has a firm stance that it will not give in to nuclear blackmail or allow cross-border terrorism to be conducted invoking it. In conversations with various countries, we have also cautioned that their subscribing to such scenarios could hurt them in their own region. Can we take more questions? Okay.
Good evening, sir. Here Maheshwari from Sputnik, sir. Just a clarification. Secretary Baku Rubio tweeted that India and Pakistan had agreed to ceasefire as well as start talks on a broad range of issues at a neutral site. So would it be possible to get a clarification on this if we agreed to that? And sir, the second question is about India-US trade talks. India has formally notified the WTO proposing retaliatory tariffs against select US imports over Washington's tariffs on steel and aluminum imports. Would it be possible to get a clarification on this? And does it affect India's negotiating position vis-a-vis the bilateral trade agreement? Thank you.
Okay, Smita.
Smita Sharma here. I mean, you know, the US State Department actually in the press statement of 10th May, it was in bold and headline that mentioned US brokered ceasefire between India and Pakistan. I'm just trying to understand if New Delhi actually rejected it outrightly, raised it with Washington DC then, that this framing was incorrect, or is it only now that India is making it clear that there was no US role in it? And just a quick question on whether there's any update on PK Sahu, the BSF constable, who has been in Pakistan captivity for more than 20 days now. Or he's been arrested there because he never crossed.
Suhasini.
Mr. Jaiswal, this is Suhasini Heather from The Hindu. In continuation to Smita's question about whether India has raised with the US these clearly what you are calling false statements made by US President Donald Trump, that India did not broker, the US did not broker a ceasefire, that trade was not discussed. These are all things that have been said now on the record in camera. So have you raised this at any level? And similarly, yesterday at the MOD briefing, we heard them speak about the Chinese equipment, hardware support to Pakistan. I wanted to ask if this is something that is going to be taken up with China in terms of India and China's own bilateral relationship. So both of them, are these two things going to have any impact on India's relations with either the US or China?
Neeraj.
Sir, Neeraj who News 18. सर नीरज हूँ न्यूज 18 कई अमेरिकी नेताओं की बात मिलिट्री जो कार्रवाई चल रही थी भारत की उस दौरान बातचीत हुई प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी से किस अमेरिकी नेता की बातचीत हुई क्योंकि मीडिया रिपोर्ट में आया है कि अमेरिकी उपराष्ट्रपति जेडी वांस ने उनसे बातचीत भी किया और यह भी अनुरोध किया था कि वो अपनी मिलिट्री कार्रवाई को थोड़ा कम करें डीएस्केलेट करें और दूसरा सवाल यह है कि जब भारत ऑपरेशन सिंदूर में चल रहा था पाकिस्तान के खिलाफ आतंकवाद के खिलाफ माफ कीजिएगा तो बांग्लादेश में अवामी लीग पर बैन लगा दिया वहां की सरकार ने भारत इसको कैसे देख रहा
Okay, there first regarding your question about Secretary Rubio's comments, on that I've already spoken. I've told you how the understanding between India and Pakistan was bilaterally reached and what was the conversation that we had with other countries. On trade matters, I do understand that there is a proposal which has been made in Geneva. It has been made very recently, so I don't have further details on that, but for sure we'll update you with the matter as we progress with those negotiations. Smita, again, I have already answered those questions of yours when I talked about, the question of ceasefire as to who decided, what were the terms, when it happened, etc. So I would urge you to look at those comments of mine. I've told you that we have conveyed our position. I conveyed our position here on record, so I will request you to look at that. On the matter of PK Sahu, I don't have an update, so possibly we'll get you an update, but these are matters which pertain to the Ministry of Defense and they are looking into it. Again, Suhasini, on ceasefire, I've made India's position very clear, where we stand. So I would urge you to look at my comments. On the other question that you had, and possibly it had come up in the conversation or the press conference yesterday, there we have, I would say that we have obviously taken note of this. I direct your attention to the comments in the defense briefing about the extent of their effectiveness or otherwise. नीरज, आपके दो सवाल. प्रधानमंत्री की बात अमेरिका के उपराष्ट्रपति जेडी वांस से हुई थी और उस दरमियान जो बातचीत हुई थी दोनों नेताओं के बीच में उसके आपको अवगत भी कराया गया है. जहां तक अवामी लीग की बात है, the ban on the Awami League without due process is a concerning development. As a democracy, India is naturally concerned at curtailment of democratic freedoms and shrinking political space, we strongly support the early holding of free, fair and inclusive elections in Bangladesh. जो अवामी लीग पे बैन लगा है वो एक चिंता का विषय है। एक जो लोकतांत्रिक प्रणाली में एक तरीका होता है सब काम करने का, वो ड्यू प्रोसेस को दरकिनार करके किया गया है। एक लोकतंत्र के रूप में भारत जो वहां पर लोकतांत्रिक आज़ादी को रोका जा रहा है और जो वहां पर राजनीतिक गतिविधियों के लिए जो दायरा है वो कम हो रहा है, इसको लेके हम लोग चिंतित हैं। और साथ में हमारा ये मानना है, हमारा ये आह्वान है कि बांग्लादेश में जल्द से जल्द एक निष्पक्ष और समावेशी चुनाव कराया जाए। Can we then go? मनीष।
सर मैं मनीष झा हूँ TV9 भारतवर्ष से। पिछले दिनों हमने एक और कैरेक्टर देखा, वो था तुर्की का रोल। जिस तरीके से टर्की के ड्रोन पाकिस्तान ने इस्तेमाल किए, इसके अलावा टर्की ने लगातार इस मामले में पाकिस्तान का सपोर्ट किया। जब हम आतंकवाद के खिलाफ लड़ाई लड़ रहे हैं और टर्की उस समय पाकिस्तान के साथ है, जबकि आपको याद होगा 9/11 के टाइम में अमेरिका का डायलॉग था कि अगर आप हमारे साथ नहीं हैं तो आप आतंकियों के साथ हैं। तो टर्की के मामले में भारत की अब नीति क्या रहने वाली है?
देखिए, जो सवाल का जवाब दे दिया गया उसको ना पूछे, कोई नया सवाल हो तो बताएं। यशी।
This is Yeshi Seli from Business India. Are there any leads of the terrorists who attacked on the 22nd of April? And 3 terrorists were neutralized in Shopian today. Do they have any links with the terror attack of the 22nd? And in addition, when are the next DGMO talks likely to be?
एक मिनट। बताइए।
सर, ब्रह्म प्रकाश हूँ न्यूज़ इंडिया से। मेरा सवाल है कि जिस तरह से ऑपरेशन सिंदूर के दौरान जो हमारे मित्र देशों की भूमिका रही, उसको लेकर खासतौर से अमेरिका की भूमिका, ये देखा गया है कि भारत और पाकिस्तान को एक ही तराजू में बराबर तौला गया है, ये माना जा रहा है। क्या जिस तरह से भारत कहता रहा है, अमेरिका कहता रहा है कि दोनों क्लोज पार्टनर है, क्या भारत की डिप्लोमेसी को एक तरह से अमेरिका की तरफ से झटका लगा है? भारत इस पर दोबारा विचार करेगा? क्योंकि जिस तरह से रुख रहा है अमेरिका का, ये माना जा रहा है, सीधे शब्दों में कहें कि अमेरिका ने धोखा दिया इस पूरे मामले में। क्या कह रहे हैं?
मधुरेंद्र।
सर, मधुरेंद्र, मैं न्यूज़ नेशन से। यह स्पष्ट है कि चीन और तुर्की के हथियार भारत के खिलाफ इस्तेमाल किए गए, और इसी संदर्भ में मैं जानना चाहता हूं कि डिफेंस इंटेलिजेंस एजेंसी की जो आज ब्रीफिंग हुई है, क्या उसमें डिफेंस अटैचे चीन के और तुर्की के बुलाए गए थे? क्या बुलाए जाने पर उन्होंने अटेंड किया? दूसरा सवाल मेरा यह है कि हमने एक ट्रेंड क्रिएट किया है कि एनी एक्ट ऑफ टेरर विल बी एक्ट ऑफ वॉर। तो क्या उसको डिफाइन कर सकते हैं कि क्या आगे होने वाला कोई भी भारत पर पाकिस्तान की तरफ से या पाकिस्तान प्रायोजित आतंक की तरफ से हमला सीधे तौर पर कार्रवाई के तौर पे पाकिस्तान पर वॉर के तौर पे देखा जाएगा? हम सीधे युद्ध थोपेंगे या युद्ध करेंगे पाकिस्तान से?
मनीष जी, पहले तुर्की को लेके काफ़ी सारे सवाल थे। देखिए, सुहासिनी के सवाल के जवाब में मैंने बताया था कि हमारा क्या नज़रिया है, और तुर्की को लेके और चीन के लेके उनके जो वेपन्स वगैरह को लेके जो डिफेंस की ब्रीफिंग में भी खुलासा किया गया। तो मैं कहूँगा कि आप जो वहाँ पर बताया गया बात, उस पर ध्यान केंद्रित करें। जहाँ तक हम लोग का सवाल है, हम लोग ने बताया कि हम लोगों ने इन गतिविधियों को नोट किया है, और साथ ही में जो कमेंट्स डिफेंस ब्रीफिंग में दिया गया था इन चीज़ों के बारे में, उस पर मैं आपका ध्यान आकर्षित कराना चाहता हूं। और साथ ही साथ उन्होंने इसकी इफ़ेक्टिवनेस जो कितना पुरजोर रहा उसके बारे में या नहीं रहा उसके बारे में उन्होंने बात किया था। The investigations are on, so we'll have to wait for the progress. Obviously, when we make progress, we'll keep you updated. DGMO talks, I understand, had happened yesterday, and many of you were informed of the developments and the discussion that had happened. The rest, as and when the next DGMO level talks happen, you will be kept informed of it. ब्रह्म प्रकाश जी, आपने जो बात की हाइफिनेशन की बात की कि एक तरीके से भारत पाकिस्तान दोनों साथ में बंध गए, एक हाइफिनेशन हो गया, तो उस पर मेरा हम लोग का यह मानना है कि इट इज क्वाइट द रिवर्स. देयर इज वाइड स्प्रेड अंडरस्टैंडिंग in the world that Indian tourists were the victims of terror at Pahalgam, and that the epicenter of terrorism is across the border in Pakistan. A number of foreign leaders, बहुत सारे विदेशी जो नेतागण हैं, उनसे जो हमारी बातचीत हुई उसमें उन्होंने माना कि भारत को अपने को डिफेंड करने का उसका हक है और अपने लोगों को बचाने का, उसकी सुरक्षा का प्रदान करने का उनको हक है. मैं आपका ध्यान यूएन सिक्योरिटी काउंसिल का जो रेजोल्यूशन है, प्रेस स्टेटमेंट यूएन सिक्योरिटी काउंसिल ने 25 अप्रैल को जो अपनाया था, उस पर मैं ध्यान दिलाना चाहूँगा. वो प्रेस स्टेटमेंट बड़ा क्लियरली ये बताता है, मैं कोट कर रहा हूँ, देयर इज नीड टू अपहोल्ड परपरेटर्स, ऑर्गेनाइजर्स, फाइनेंसर्स and sponsors of this reprehensible act of terrorism accountable and bring them to justice. It stressed that those responsible for this killing should be held accountable. तो इससे आप जो हाइफिनेशन की बात कर रहे हैं ना, उसके पूरे ही विपरीत लोगों ने माना कि एक देश है जो आतंकवाद को बढ़ावा देता है, इंडस्ट्रियल स्केल पर आतंकवाद पैदा करता है और उनके खिलाफ सख्त से सख्त कार्रवाई होनी चाहिए.
अमेरिका ने भारत को धोखा दिया इस पूरे मामले में.
अमेरिका, जहां तक अमेरिका और अन्य देशों के बारे में हम लोगों ने अपना पक्ष आपके सामने रखा है. वी हैव श्रीधर, सॉरी, एक मिनट, ये इनका मधुरेंद्र का सवाल रह गया था. मधुरेंद्र, देखिए, तुर्की और चीन के अस्त्र के बारे में हमने अभी जवाब दे दिया है आपको. और जहां तक एक्ट ऑफ टेरर की बात है, हमारे तरफ से हमारे लीडरशिप के लेवल पे कहा जा रहा है कि क्रॉस बॉर्डर टेररिज्म का जहां सवाल है, हमारा जीरो टॉलरेंस रहेगा. जब भी कोई इस प्रकार का घटना होता है तो हम उसका पुरजोर जवाब देंगे. उस डिफेंस अटैचे को बुलाया गया, उसकी मीटिंग हुई थी, उन्हें बुलाया गया था. कौन कौन वहां आए थे इसके बारे में मेरी संज्ञान नहीं है, मैं आपको इसके बारे में अवगत कराऊंगा. क्या मैंने कहा ना कि हमारे जो अभी प्रधानमंत्री के भाषण में आपने देखा होगा किस प्रकार का बयान था क्रॉस बॉर्डर टेररिज्म को लेके, और आतंकवाद से लड़ने के लिए जो हमारा प्रण है, जो हमारा नीति है, उसके बारे में खुलासा किया गया था. वो नीति रहेगा.
So Sridhar from the Asian Age and Deccan Chronicle. 3 months back when PM Modi visited the US, there was a joint statement in which the US specifically called out these Pakistan-based terror organizations. And there was widespread satisfaction in India at that point of time. But strangely, there was absolutely no reference to terror or Pakistan, that Pakistan needs to dismantle this terrorist infrastructure in the statements of President Trump. I mean, it was as if, two siblings are fighting and, the US has stepped in to end it. There was absolutely no reference to Pakistan sponsoring terrorism. Are you a bit shocked at that why there has been such a dramatic change in the past 3 months? And a small question, could we have a list of the civilian casualties in Operation Sindoor? We have got some figures from the military side on the military casualties, but for the civilian casualties, are you going to reveal that? Thank you, sir.
Rita?
Vinita from the Asian Age Deccan Chronicle. Randirji, we have reached a ceasefire situation, but why are we seeing firing at the border and drone activities? Airlines had to start their function, but again shut down at 5 airports yesterday night. Just an idea that is everything okay at the borders, or are we still fighting a battle there?
Geeta?
Geeta Mohan from India Today. Just wanted to know again about the dehyphenation and hyphenation question. India invested diplomatically for years in the dehyphenation of India-Pakistan, not just with the world, but particularly with the United States of America, and we've seen them dehyphenate. And now we're seeing President Trump hyphenate India, Pakistan, speak of them in the same breath, talk about them being great countries that US wants to do trade with. Is India raising this matter with the United States of America, reminding them of 9/11 and Osama bin Laden?
Okay, Reza.
Reza from Hindustan Times. Just a quick question on President Putin's offer for direct talks with Ukraine. Do we have a position on that?
Okay. So you talked about a fight against terrorism. You saw what the UN Security Council came up with a statement. The UN Security Council consists of 5 permanent members and 10 non-permanent members. It came out with a very strong condemnation. The United States is part of that. Our partnership with the United States as far as security, defense continues. It will continue to be, continue to grow and continue to deepen. Vinita, you had a question about drones, etc. These are questions that you will have to, when the MOD briefing happens, possibly they will give you. These are questions to be answered by people who deal with it. I don't have any particular update on it. Geeta, on the hyphenation part, see, I have already made it clear. Our understanding is that instead of being hyphenated, quite the reverse is happening, because people are realizing that here is a country which is running a factory of terrorism, and they need to be suitably taken to task. The conversation that we have had with leaders across the world, with countries, they have all stood with India. There was very strong condemnation from leaders across the world, countries across the world, and they also realize that that India has the right to respond, to take action for protecting its people. Sorry, I have already answered your question. On Reza, on your question regarding the direct talks, we welcome the direct talks that have been announced between Russia and Ukraine. Talks present an opportunity for both parties to address their concerns through dialogue and diplomacy. India has consistently advocated the need for sincere and practical engagement between Russia and Ukraine to ensure early and abiding peace. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the close of this press briefing. Thank you very much.
So that was the weekly press briefing of India's Ministry of External Affairs. It was said that India and Pakistan will bilaterally resolve the issue of Jammu and Kashmir, that too of Pakistan-occupied Kashmir in particular. As regards with conversation with other nations, India has conveyed its stance that India was responding to April 22nd Pahalgam attack by terrorists. India thus had only targeted terrorist infrastructure inside Pakistan. On a question related to the Indus Water Treaty, it was said that the treaty stands in abeyance due to Pakistan's promotion of cross-border terrorism, and it will be so until Pakistan abjures its support for cross-border terrorism. It was further informed that Operation Sindoor will be the new normal. The sooner Pakistan realizes it, the better it will be for all. For Pakistan, it was said that a nation that has nurtured terrorism on an industrial scale, if it thinks that it can escape the consequences for it, it is only fooling itself. It was said that claiming victory has been an old habit of Pakistan, and it is nothing new being seen this time. It was again reiterated that an investigation on the Pahalgam terror attack is ongoing. TRF, the resistance front, and Lashkar-e-Taiba proxy has claimed responsibility of the attack. Also, it was underlined that India will not tolerate either Pakistan's nuclear blackmail or Pakistan sponsoring cross-border terrorism from its side. On other issues, the Ministry of External Affairs spokesperson informed on Bangladesh, the situation in Bangladesh, that India supports elections and democratically elected government there. It was said that India is concerned on the news of Sheikh Hasina's Awami League party being banned by Bangladesh's interim government led by Mohammad Yunus. On Russia-Ukraine conflict, it was said that India welcomes the proposal of direct talks between Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky for abiding peace. So that was, in a nutshell, the highlights of the weekly press briefing by India's Ministry of External Affairs. We are heading for a short break here on DD India Live. We'll be back with more. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. So India's External Affairs Ministry held a weekly media briefing in New Delhi on Tuesday. MEA spokesperson Ranveer Jaiswal noted that any issue pertaining to the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir has to be addressed by India and Pakistan bilaterally, adding that India's policy on this matter has not changed. So, speaking on the Indus Water Treaty, Ranveer Jaiswal said that the treaty was adopted in the spirit of goodwill and friendship as specified in the preamble of the treaty. However, Pakistan has held these principles in abeyance by its promotion of cross-border terrorism for decades, adding that as per the Security Cabinet's decision of 23rd April, India will keep the treaty, Indus Water Treaty, in abeyance until Pakistan credibly and irrevocably withdraws its support for cross-border terrorism.
As you are aware, we have a long-standing national position that any issues pertaining to the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir have to be addressed by India and Pakistan bilaterally. That stated policy has not changed. As you are aware, the outstanding matter is the vacation of illegally occupied Indian territory by Pakistan. The IWT, the Indus Water Treaty, was concluded in the spirit of goodwill and friendship as specified in the preamble of the treaty. However, Pakistan has held these principles in abeyance by its promotion of cross-border terrorism for several decades now. Now, as per CCS decision that I referred to, of 23rd April, India will keep the treaty in abeyance until Pakistan credibly and irrevocably abjures its support for cross-border terrorism. Please also note that climate change, demographic shifts and technological changes have created new realities on ground as well.
Further, MEA spokesperson Ranveer Jaiswal informed that from the time Operation Sindoor commenced on May 7th till the understanding on cessation of firing and military action reached on May 10th, there were conversations between Indian and US leaders on the evolving military situation, noting that the issue of trade did not come up in any of those discussions.
From the time of Operation Sindoor commenced on 7th May, till the understanding on cessation of firing and military action on 10th May, there were conversations between Indian and US leaders on the evolving military situation. The issue of trade did not come up in any of these discussions.
And DD India's Jessica Taneja is tracking the story for us. Jessica, it was again reiterated at the Ministry of External Affairs Prasar that the epicenter of terrorism remains inside Pakistan and India's zero tolerance for cross-border terrorism continues.
That's correct, and you heard ASXP, Randeep Jaiswal, the Ministry of External Affairs spokesperson, also point out to the fact that the Indus Water Treaty would also remain in abeyance till the time Pakistan works towards, destroying the terrorist camps and the terrorist activities and preventing those from taking place further, not just in India but across the world. Now, particularly with the Indus Water Treaty, because Pakistan had made iterations saying that this would, in fact, be very difficult for them to deal with. Now, this is the first steps, if you recall, the Indian government had taken, especially when it comes to, diplomatic cutoff, etc., and sort of putting it down to the Pakistani side that Indus Water Treaty initially, as it was based, when it was brokered, it was based on goodwill and friendship. Perhaps, exploitation of that, not allowing India to utilize its legitimate waters to build projects, and not just along the eastern rivers, but also the western rivers, has hampered the growth of the region for a very long time. Of course, accusations galore on India on how the Indus Water Treaty, according to Pakistan, would be preventing a certain riparian state. But the issue here is that, Pakistan, despite all these years and decades of war and sponsoring cross-border terrorism, India, in goodwill, in friendship, had always kept the treaty with its, ideas that were first instituted or agreed upon back in 1950, brokered by the World Bank. But I think India has sort of made it clear that it's high time cross-border terrorism, along with that, the flow of water would not continue, because there has to be, at some point, when patients are tested just too much, and perhaps India has made it clear that it's not just only going to be about the Indus Water Treaty, but all kinds of actions that will follow suit till the time Pakistan continues to sponsor terrorism, not just across the border here in India, but also around the world. Its terror bases need to be destroyed, and it needs to take accountability and action towards it. Tanvi.
Okay, thank you very much, Jessica Taneja there covering the MEA presser for us. Well, that's all for this edition of DD India Live. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. Connect with us on our different social media handles at DD India Live. And for those on the go, you can download our DD India mobile app for news and updates from India and the world. You can scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja from all of us here in New Delhi. Thank you for watching. Namaskar.